Okay, so Smash Ultimate's final DLC fighter is releasing in less than 2 days. Now, I was going to make a video talking about all the characters that could potentially be the final DLC fighter, but heaps of people have already done that. And so in this video, I am going to be talking about the indie characters that I think could potentially be Smash Ultimate's final DLC fighter. Let's begin. Alright, so before I start talking about all the indie characters that could potentially be the final fighter, I want to talk about some rules that I had to put in place when selecting each character. Rule number 1. The game that the characters are coming from cannot be too recent, as I'm sure DLC fighters are made at least 1 year in advance. Rule number 2. The game that each character is from has to be somewhat popular, as I don't see Nintendo adding a character from an indie game that's only sold 10,000 copies. It would just be a bad business move. Rule number 3. The character cannot have a Mii Fighter costume or an assist trophy that is already in Ultimate, as I don't think Nintendo would bother making a Mii Fighter costume or assist trophy for a character that would end up coming to Ultimate. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Without further ado, let's talk about some indie characters that I think have a decent chance at joining Ultimate. The Knight from Hollow Knight is one of the most requested fighters to join Ultimate, and I think he would fit really well into the roster. Hollow Knight is an amazing game that has also sold over 3 million copies, which is more copies than ARMS has sold, so there's that. Then there's also the fact that Nintendo wouldn't have to think much of what the Knight's moveset would be, as the Knight uses a bunch of different attacks and abilities in Hollow Knight. Terraria is an insanely popular game, and the character that you control in Terraria, whose name is, I guess, the Terraria guy, I don't know what his name is, but anyways, he's definitely deserving of a spot on the roster. Terraria has sold over 35 million copies, which is sadly double the copies of the entire Metroid series, which hurts to say, but I just have to prove that Terraria is damn popular. The moveset for the Terraria guy would be really easy to come up with, and the moveset could also be really cool, as there are so many amazing and interesting weapons in Terraria. I think that because Steve is already in Ultimate, that it does ruin the chance of Terraria guy joining the roster, as the two characters are kind of similar in the sense that they both build stuff. But Terraria is still one of the most iconic indie games ever, and who's really good at jumping, and well, that's all she really does. So I don't know what her moveset would be, but other than that, I think she would work quite well in Ultimate. She'd bring some great music to the game, and hopefully more people would get to check out Celeste if she did end up becoming the final DLC fighter. In Stardew Valley, you play as a farmer, and that farmer could be an Ultimate. Stardew Valley is an extremely popular indie game, and the possibilities for the fighter's movesets are endless, as he could attack using tools, weapons, crops, and maybe even animals. I would also love to see how the music in Stardew Valley is remixed to be really hype, as the soundtrack in Stardew Valley is extremely relaxing. It would also just be incredible to see a game that was created by one single man be represented in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. In my opinion, Cadence from the Crypt of the Necrodancer series is the most likely indie character to join Ultimate's roster. Some of you may have forgotten that in 2019, a Zelda game titled Cadence of Hyrule Crypt of the Necrodancer was released. What's so fascinating about this game is that the development team, who go by the name of Brace Yourself Games, were actually the first indie team to ever work on a full game containing a Nintendo IP. So Nintendo definitely have some sort of relationship with Brace Yourself Games, which leads me to believe that Cadence has a really good shot at being the final DLC fighter. Overcooked was released over 5 years ago, and I think the chefs you play as could potentially join Ultimate. Having a literal chef as the final DLC fighter would be really funny, and would definitely annoy a lot of people. The Overcooked series has sold extremely well over the past few years, so you cannot say that Overcooked isn't popular. The chef's moveset could be made up of throwing pots and pans and attacking with knives and carrots, and hearing the Overcooked soundtrack in a Smash Bros match would be hilarious. Celeste has been one of the most spoken about indie games over the past few years, and for good reason, as it's a brilliant platforming game that also has a great story. In the game you play as Madeline, who's really good at jumping, and well, that's all she really does. So I don't know what her moveset would be, but other than that, I think she would work quite well in Ultimate. She'd bring some great music to the game, and hopefully more people would get to check out Celeste if she did end up becoming the final DLC fighter. The final character is a bit of a weird or controversial choice. Now, I don't think characters from mobile games should be in Smash, but Freddy Fazbear from the Five Nights at Freddy's series is just such an iconic character that I think he's honestly deserving of a spot on the roster. I don't know how he would attack, and I don't know what music would be added to Ultimate, but you cannot say that Freddy isn't popular enough or wouldn't sell well as a fighter. So those are the indie characters that I think have a good shot at being the final DLC fighter in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. But what do you think? Do you think the final fighter is going to be a first party character or an indie character? Let me know in the comments so we can talk about it. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel for more Nintendo content, and thank you for watching.